Well, it's good afternoon from me to you. For a second one, he talks about these two new albums that are coming out. Well, they're not new, they're new old albums, but they look really ginchy. Songs for a Fallow Land, 1985, which was one of those great years in my life, really. It was great because nothing particularly spectacular happened. It was just a nice year. No terrible things happened. There wasn't a miners' strike. Nobody died. It wasn't full of funerals. And 1983 was a kind of quite a working year for me, but not one to do with a great deal of musical success. I did get a commission to write a book, but that too floundered, but it did teach me how to write a book. So this album, Cleanse from Venus, In the Golden Autumn, Renee, Who's Driving Your Car, A Holloway Person, Ghosts in Doorways. I think that I must have been working very hard because we didn't have reviews as such. I mean, the music papers, I couldn't have got arrested by them at the time. There was a period where people like the NME and Melody Maker and Sounds realised there was a cassette underground thing going on, but actually it only lasted about a year, and we did get mentioned occasionally. Not that it made any difference. The people who were our real media were the fanzines. Things like Blam and stuff like that. Yeah, there were lots and lots of fanzines, and there was a DIY network. There was a bunch of us who did not like the fact, say, that punk had morphed into New Romantics. Although New Romantics probably was great fun for the people who were hanging around in that London and doing it, or Sheffield, it was a bafflement, because for those of us who were poor and scrabbling around, people on the dole, the working poor of England, the people who were beginning to feel a bit sort of marginalised, just invented their own poverty-stricken underground. We brought things out on cassette, we got them reviewed in fanzines, we sold them hand to hand in pubs, or sometimes at gigs if we did them, or, you know, if they got written about, people would send in 50p or £2.50 stuck to a bit of cardboard in a small padded envelope, and we'd send the cassettes out. We thought we were doing well if we'd sold 50 or 100 of them. At least we got our money back, or got enough to make say another run. This album, what might I still be able to play off it 40 years later, over 40 years later? Marilyn on a Train we did do live with the Gardeners. Balloon Drop Shadow was just an instrumental. Krugerrand Gladiators, but I think we did do so I just about remember it. Please don't step on my rainbow, it's only staying for an hour, and I may have a rip because I didn't sign for it. You know how people talk in a small town. It would have started off like that. I probably refined it, I recorded it. We knew we got something. People liked it. I gather it's become a bit of a classic now. It's got quite a lot of streams on various streaming platforms, and I did a couple of years ago relearn to play it. It's a good song. It's very uncharacteristic of the playing because it's kind of a bluesy sounding thing, and what we were doing was beginning to refine that thing where we started to sound quite English and everything like that. I'm trying to think what else. Sandstorm in Paradise was really, really psychedelic. What was my favourite on this? A Holloway Person was pretty good. It was actually about an earlier story about someone that we'd known who'd, let's just say a woman, she was hanging around the house when I lived in a place outside London, and there was more and more trouble. There was, one day she disappeared, and the next thing we got a letter from Holloway Women's Prison, and she said, I shouldn't think you're surprised to find that I'm in Holloway Prison, and I think she may have only been on remand. I don't know if she was in there on a sentence, but yeah, we were a bit surprised because we were still teenagers and we didn't really think that things like that happened to people we knew. Getting to older teenagehood, they were starting to throw people in jail for, I don't know, having more than about 20 blue pills on them or something like that. And blue pills in those days were actually speed. They weren't things to enhance your sex life. That would be another few decades before that was invented. However, it was a sunny sort of record. A German fanzine wrote of this that he was writing a series called The Children of the Kinks. You know, the kind of people who've been inspired by Ray Davies. It's funny, I do like Ray Davies, and I even had some of those early singles, but the Kinks weren't when I was a very young chap learning my first chords. They weren't the first my go-to band. I liked the Who, but I guess the Who, the Kinks, the Small Faces, the Move, these were all the bands that inspired me. But in my late 20s, I was still really finding my feet. You know, it takes you a long time to find your own voice sometimes. Not everybody comes out fully formed. We're not all Hendrix or the Beatles. You don't just do that. Most people don't know shit from Shinola till they're getting towards 30, and then they're beginning to get a sense of themselves and their artistic maturity. However, plenty of time for all that. This is probably the album, Gleanings from Venus, Songs for a Fallow Land. And maybe how we lived in those days as well, because we were, you know, we were poor but we were happy. Big house, not much money, lots of ducks and chickens running around, too many cats, a wild rabbit, some kids, you know, and I was the concierge, the janitor of lunacy for all this. Anyway, more on that next time.